June 11th, 1944. The Normandy countryside. The air smells of crushed apples, damp earth, and burning diesel. Inside a British Sherman tank, the world is a claustrophobic nightmare of noise and heat. The commander stands in the cupola, staring through his binoculars at a shape in the distance. It is a blocky, angular silhouette sitting motionless at the edge of a tree line. It is a Panzerkampfwagen 6, a Tiger. The British crew knows the math. They know it in their bones. The Tiger has 100 millimeters of hardened steel on its front. The Sherman has a 75 millimeter gun that fires a shell traveling at a leisurely 2,000 feet per second. The order is given. Fire! The Sherman rocks back. The shell screams across the field. It strikes the Tiger's frontal plate dead center. Clang! It is the most demoralizing sound in warfare. The sound of a sledgehammer hitting an anvil. The shell doesn't penetrate. It shatters. It bounces off the German steel and ricochets into the sky, leaving nothing but a scratch on the paint. Slowly, terrifyingly, the Tiger's turret begins to rotate. The long 88 millimeter gun traverses toward the Sherman. The British crew is frantic. Load! Fire again. They fire again. Clang. They are throwing pebbles at a fortress. The Tiger fires once. There is no bounce. There is only a catastrophic explosion as the 88 millimeter shell tears through the Sherman, igniting the ammunition and fuel. This scene played out hundreds of times. It was the Tiger panic. The Allies had the numbers, but the Germans had the physics. The Allies needed a miracle. They needed a weapon that didn't just hit hard. They needed a weapon that could punch a hole through the toughest steel ever rolled by German industry. They needed a silver bullet. To understand the silver bullet, we must leave the muddy fields of France and go back to a desperate moment in 1940, days before the fall of Paris. The technology that would eventually kill the Tiger tank did not begin in a British laboratory. It began in the mind of a French engineer working for the Edgar Brandt Company. In the 1930s, military engineers were hitting a wall. To penetrate thicker armor, you needed a bigger gun, but a bigger gun meant a heavier tank. If you made the gun too big, the tank became too heavy to move. It was a paradox. The French engineers had a radical idea. What if you didn't need a bigger shell? What if you just needed a faster one? They theorized that penetration wasn't about the size of the explosion. It was about kinetic energy. The formula for kinetic energy is simple: 1/2 mass times velocity squared. That meant that if you doubled the weight of the shell, you doubled the energy. But if you doubled the speed, you quadrupled the energy. Speed was the key. Speed was the killer. But how do you make a shell go faster? You make it lighter. But if you make it lighter, it's smaller, and it won't fit in the gun barrel. The gas will escape around the sides, and the shell will flop out like a cork. The French solution was the sabot, the French word for a wooden shoe or clog. They designed a small, dense projectile, a dart, and wrapped it in a lightweight shoe, or sabot, that fit the width of the gun barrel. The idea was that the sabot would catch the gas, push the dart out at incredible speed, and then fall away, leaving the dart to fly to the target. It was a brilliant concept, but before they could perfect it, the Wehrmacht crossed the Maginot Line. As German tanks rolled toward Paris, a team of French engineers frantically packed their blueprints and prototypes into suitcases. They fled to the coast, boarding one of the last evacuation ships to England. They were leaving their country behind, but they were carrying a seed of technology that would one day liberate it. 1941. The Armament Research Department, ARD, in Kent, England. The French blueprints land on the desks of two British researchers, Permutter and Koppok. These men are not soldiers. They are mathematicians, metallurgists, and ballistics experts. They are the wizards of the backroom. They look at the French sabot concept and realize two things. First, it is brilliant. Second, it doesn't work. The problem is the separation. In theory, the sabot, the shoe, is supposed to fall away cleanly the moment the shell leaves the gun. In practice, it's a disaster. If the sabot stays attached for a fraction of a second too long on one side, it acts like a rudder. It pulls the projectile off course. The shell tumbles. It hits the ground. It flies sideways. It is useless. Permutter and Kopok spend 3 years obsessed with this problem. They are trying to solve a puzzle of aerodynamics that happens in milliseconds, moving at 3 times the speed of sound. They realize they need a material that is incredibly heavy and hard for the penetrator dart. Steel is too soft. It will shatter against a tiger's hide. They turn to tungsten carbide, a material so dense and hard it is used to machine other metals. It is scarce, expensive, and brittle, but it is the only thing that will work. They design a dart of tungsten, less than 2 inches wide. It looks like a large arrow. Then they tackle the sabot. They design a pot or cup made of aluminum alloy. It looks like a flower pot holding the dart. They score the sides of the pot so that when it hits the air resistance outside the barrel, the pot will peel back like the petals of a blooming flower. They call it APDS, Armour-Piercing Discarding Sabot. When they test it, the results are terrifying. A standard 17-pounder shell leaves the barrel at 2,900 feet per second. The APDS round screams out at 3,950 feet per second. It is hypersonic. It moves so fast that the human eye cannot track the tracer. It arrives at the target before the sound of the gun firing. When this tungsten dart hits a steel plate in testing, it doesn't just penetrate, it flows. The kinetic energy is so high that the steel armor behaves like a liquid. The dart punches through, spraying a fountain of molten metal into the tank. Permutter and Kopok have done it. They have created a projectile that can turn a tiger tank into a tomb from a mile away. But they have also created a problem. The year is 1943. The invasion of Europe is looming. The British Army needs this ammunition now. But on the test ranges, a dark secret about the silver bullet is emerging. It is powerful, yes, but it is wild. The separation of the sabot petals is violent. Even with Permutter and Kopok's refinements, the separation isn't always symmetrical. Sometimes, a piece of the aluminum casing clings to the dart for a microsecond too long. That microsecond is enough to induce a yaw, a wobble. At 500 yards, the wobble doesn't matter much, but at 1,000 yards, at 2,000 yards, the shell might veer 5 feet to the left. It might dive into the dirt. The British High Command holds a firing trial. They set up a target the size of a Panther tank turret. They fire standard solid-shot ammunition. The accuracy is excellent, over 90% hits at 1,000 yards. Then they load the silver bullets. They fire. The results are sobering. The accuracy drops to 57%. Nearly half the shots miss the target completely. The generals are faced with a dilemma. They have a weapon that can kill anything, but only hits half the time. Do they issue it? The decision is made. The tiger threat is too great to ignore. Even an inaccurate weapon is better than a weapon that bounces. They authorize mass production, but they attach a warning. This is not for every shot. This is for emergencies. This is the silver bullet you keep in your pocket for the werewolf. The silver bullet needs a gun to fire it. And not just any gun. It needs the 17-pounder. The 17-pounder is a beast of a weapon. It has a barrel that is 15 feet long. The breech block is the size of a typewriter. The recoil is powerful enough to break a man's collarbone if he stands in the wrong place. It was designed as a towed anti-tank gun to be pulled by a truck. No one ever intended to put it inside a tank. It was simply too big. But another engineer, William Kilbourne at Vickers, refused to accept too big. He looked at the American Sherman tank, the workhorse of the Allied armies, and decided he was going to jam this massive gun into its turret. Physics be damned. Kilbourne turned the recoil mechanism sideways. He cut a hole in the back of the turret and welded an armoured box onto it to allow the gun to recoil. He removed the assistant driver's seat to make room for the massive shells. The result was the Sherman Firefly. It was a Franken tank, It was cramped. It was uncomfortable. The muzzle blast was so bright it blinded the crew. When it fired, flames shot 6 feet out of the barrel. But it was the only tank in the Allied inventory that could carry the silver bullet. By May 1944, the Fireflies are arriving in the assembly areas. The crews are briefed. They are told they are priority targets. They are told that the Germans will hunt them specifically. And then they are given the boxes. Heavy wooden crates stamped with APDS. The crews pry them open. Inside, they see the strange-looking rounds. They don't look like normal shells. They look like black tubes with a funny-looking nose. June 1944. D-Day has succeeded, but the battle for Normandy has bogged down. The Allies are stuck in the Bocage, a nightmare landscape of high hedgerows and sunken lanes. It is sniper country, and the German panzers are waiting. For the first few weeks, the silver bullet is a rumour. The supply is scarce. A Firefly might carry 77 rounds of ammunition, but only 4 or 6 of them are APDS. The rest are standard solid shot. The crews hoard them. They treat them like gold. Then the encounters begin. A British column is moving near Caen. A Tiger one emerges from a barn 1,500 yards away. It is well beyond the effective range of a standard Sherman. The Tiger commander is confident. He stops to aim, knowing he has time. In the lead Firefly, the commander makes a split-second decision. Sabot up, load Sabot. The loader, sweating in the cramped turret, reaches into the special rack. He hefts the heavy APDS round. He shoves it into the breech. Clack. Up! The gunner peers through the sight. The Tiger looks small at this distance. He knows about the wobble. He knows he might miss. He aims for the centre of mass. Fire! The 17-pounder roars. The muzzle flash lights up the hedgerow. The sabot petals peel away in a violent cloud of aluminum confetti. The tungsten dart screams across the valley at Mach 3. The German crew never hears the shot. The dart strikes the Tiger's glacis plate. It doesn't knock. It enters. The friction is so intense that the tungsten turns white hot. It punches through the engine block, through the firewall, through the ammunition rack. The Tiger shudders. A second later, a column of flame erupts from the commander's hatch. The British crew stares in silence. They have just done the impossible. They have killed a Tiger from a mile away. The silver bullet works. Word spreads fast, not just among the British, but among the Germans. German intelligence officers begin to examine the wrecks of their tanks. They are confused. They find holes that are too small to be from a large caliber gun, but too deep to be from anything else. They find entry wounds that look like someone took a laser to the steel. A report goes up to the German High Command. The Tommy has a new ammunition. It ignores armour. The psychological impact is devastating. Before, a Tiger crew felt safe as long as they kept their front armour pointed at the enemy. Now, there is no safe angle. There is no safe distance. The order goes out to all panzer divisions. Achtung! Look for the tanks with the long barrels. They are the priority. Kill them first. The Firefly crews realize they are being hunted. They paint the barrels of their guns to make them look shorter. They cover the muzzle brakes with netting. They are trying to hide the fact that they are carrying the silver bullet. But when the engagement starts, the disguise drops. August 1944. Operation Totalize. The British and Canadians are pushing south to close the Falaise Gap. Standing in their way is the 12th SS Panzer Division, and leading the Tigers is a man who has become a myth. Michael Wittmann, the Black Baron. Wittmann is the deadliest tank ace of the war. He is credited with destroying 138 tanks. He is arrogant, aggressive, and believes himself to be invincible. He rides in a Tiger number 007. On August 8th, near the village of Gaumesnil, Wittmann leads a counterattack. He is rolling across an open field, flanked by other Tigers. He expects to steamroll the British forces just as he did at Villa Bocage 2 months earlier. He sees the British tanks in the distance, Shermans. He assumes they are harmless Ronsons. He does not know that hidden in the orchard of a nearby chateau is a single Firefly from the Northamptonshire Yeomanry. The gunner is Trooper Joe Ekins. He is a shoemaker from a small town in England. He has never killed a man. This is his first combat engagement. Ekins watches the Tigers advance. He is nervous. The range is 800 yards. At this range, Ekins doesn't need the silver bullet. The standard 17-pounder shell is lethal enough at close range. But it is the existence of the 17-pounder, the gun built to fire the silver bullet, that makes this encounter possible. Ekins fires. The first Tiger explodes. Wittmann realizes he is under attack, but he can't see the enemy. He spins his turret, searching. Ekins fires again. The second Tiger burns. Now, only Wittmann is left. The Black Baron, the Invincible. He is driving blindly across the field, exposing his flank. Ekins lines up the shot. He breathes out. He fires. The shell strikes Wittmann's Tiger. It punches through the upper hull. The ammunition ignites. The explosion is so violent it blows the 11-ton turret completely off the hull, flipping it into the air like a coin. In 12 minutes, the shoemaker Joe Ekins has destroyed 3 Tigers and killed the greatest ace of the Third Reich. While Ekins likely used standard ammunition at that specific range, the message was clear. The Tiger was no longer the king. The technology gap had closed. The silver bullet and the gun that fired it had ended the reign of terror. As the war moved into Germany in 1945, the Nazis unleashed their final monsters, the Tiger II, or King Tiger. This tank was a behemoth. It weighed 70 tons. It had sloped armour that was virtually impenetrable to almost every gun in the Allied arsenal. Even the standard 17-pounder rounds bounced off its front. This was the moment the silver bullet was truly made for. Reports from the Rhineland describe encounters where Fireflies faced down King Tigers. The range was long. The standard shells were useless. The Firefly commanders called for sabot. These shots were gambles. The crews knew the accuracy issues. They knew the sabot might separate poorly and send the dart into the dirt. But they had no choice. In one documented encounter, a Firefly engaged a King Tiger at 1,200 yards. The gunner loaded APDS. He fired. The tungsten dart struck the King Tiger's turret face. It was the thickest armour on the tank, 180 millimeters of sloped steel. The dart went straight through. It didn't just penetrate, it shattered the spalling inside, killing the crew and detonating the propellant charges. The King Tiger, the pinnacle of Hitler's heavy armour obsession, was gutted by a projectile smaller than a broomstick. It was the ultimate vindication of Permeter and Kopok's work. They had proven that velocity beats mass. They had proven that a clever rock is better than a big rock. But the victory of the silver bullet was not clean. It came with a cost. Because of the accuracy issues, the wobble, many Firefly crews died trying to use it. There are accounts of gunners firing APDS at Tigers and watching the tracer spiral harmlessly past the target. The German tank, unharmed, would then return fire with lethal precision. The silver bullet was a desperate weapon for a desperate time. It was flawed. It was temperamental. But it gave the Allied crews something more important than penetration statistics. It gave them hope. Before the silver bullet, seeing a Tiger meant running or dying. With the silver bullet, there was a chance, a roll of the dice, a possibility that you could be the giant killer. The war ended in May 1945. The Tigers and King Tigers were dragged off into scrapyards. The Fireflies were retired. But the technology of the silver bullet did not disappear. In fact, it became the future. If you look at a modern main battle tank today, the American M1 Abrams, the British Challenger 2, the German Leopard 2, they do not fire explosive shells at other tanks. They fire AP, FSDS, Armour-Piercing Discarding Sabot. They fire tungsten or depleted uranium darts encased in a sabot travelling at hypersonic speeds. The technology that Perlmutter and Kopok struggled with in 1941, the flowerpot sabot, the tungsten core, the separation physics, is now the standard for every army in the world. They solved the accuracy issues by adding fins to the dart, stabilizing it like an arrow. But the concept remains exactly the same. The silver bullet was the ancestor of modern warfare. It was the moment ballistics shifted from the age of the cannonball to the age of the kinetic penetrator. Imagine a field in Normandy today. It is quiet. The hedgerows are overgrown. The rusted hulks of the tanks are gone, moved to museums or melted down. But if you were to dig into the earth, deep into the soil of a farmer's field, you might find something strange. You might find a piece of twisted aluminum. It looks like a petal from a mechanical flower. It is scorched and jagged. It is a piece of a discarding sabot, a relic of the moment when a British crew, terrified and trapped in a metal box, decided to trust in physics and fire the silver bullet. It is a piece of the secret that killed the tiger